Hello and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, hi, hey, hello. My name is Meg and we do crafty things here. So if you like crafty things, please consider subscribing and checking out what we do here. But if you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much for subscribing and tuning in to another video. So today's video is a little bit different. It's been so long since I've got a video up, it's not even funny. But we're in 2020 now. And this year, I wanted to be a year about trying new things and trying things that you've given up on. So I'm going to start with the small things, and I decided I was going to start with bracelets. So this is going to be the start of a new series on the channel, and I'm calling it Knotting Dangerously, because basically I want to try all the techniques that I've never bothered to try. I want to try new things that I've seen and want to experiment with. And just maybe revisit some old things that, I tried once, didn't like, and never went back to. And that way, we can learn together. So I can, try something new and report to you guys how it worked for me, and maybe you guys can learn something. And this idea kind of came to me because some of you had asked about different techniques and stuff. Some of you told me I should try Masha's, like, straight edges techniques. And so I thought now is the time, and I see people posting in the forums all the time, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. And I thought, even though I know a lot of that stuff, what's going to happen, I thought it would be good to actually show you guys what happens so that you can actually see it with your physical eyes. You're not just going off of someone's say-so. So today we're starting with the flat alpha technique, and I will put a link to Masha's video in the down box as well as in the cards here so you guys can see it yourself. But it's basically changing the technique of how you make a color change in an alpha that makes the alpha lie a bit flatter. And I thought I'd give it a try here, and at the same time we're trying some new string. So I went and got some craft cord, and I got some different crochet threads, and we're going to see how it all goes together. We're mixing things up. I've got a thicker crochet thread here that you're seeing me lay down for my base strings, and then I've got craft cord that I'm using for some colors, and I've got crochet thread that I'm using for others. So we'll see how we go. Not super confident in how this is going to turn out, but we'll have a good time. And for this project, I decided to do something smaller, like a keychain size. So we are going to do a Harry Styles inspired pattern, like a watermelon sugar type pattern. And the pattern number for that, because y'all know I'm a Harry Styles fan, the pattern number for that is 29608 by Fishy05. And Fishy05 is in 05 off of braceletbook.com. And it's obviously, if you can tell by the colors, watermelon sugar inspired. I love that song. That's one of my favorite songs off of the new album, which of course I have been listening to. But I thought it'd be fun. We're going to try some different things. So I started out here, and actually completely accidentally, I was a dork and I didn't watch the entirety of Masha's video. So you'll see on the edges here that I continue with the flat alpha change technique despite there being a single knot color change on the edge with this dark green. And at the end here I'll zoom in so you guys can see more what I'm talking about, but you can kind of catch it where the light green is visible on that outer edge. It kind of gives like a little wrap. So that's what happens if you actually do the flat alpha color change on the actual outside edge. You will be able to see that color, and it's difficult to hide. I do switch and stop doing that, so before anyone comments that I'm doing it wrong, I am aware. Thanks. But so far I started it, and you'll see I've sped this up quite a bit, otherwise we'd be sitting here for like over half an hour. There was 5 hours of footage for this video of me making this. So you'll see me sometimes hesitate because I'm going to do a normal color change, and then I realize, oh yeah, wait, I'm doing a flat alpha color change. So I think this is a technique I'm going to revisit in the future, because obviously it's based on, Masha said that she got the information from Claire, and Claire is actually like one of the bracelet creators that I absolutely love. Like, everyone has like a creator where they're like, wow, I wish I could do that. Claire is the one where I look at her alphas and I'm like, wow, I wish my alphas were that clean and like perfect. So Claire is one that I aspire to not like her. And so I'm confident that this technique works, that I just need to practice it. But let me tell you, I'm not thoroughly enjoying it at this point in this bracelet. My knots are coming out a little bit strange. They're not quite even, which again will be a practice thing, but I'm finding it difficult also to hide that previous string with it being pulled back afterwards. It's kind of difficult to explain, and when I do the close-up at the end, you guys will be able to see what I'm talking about a little bit clearer when we zoom in some more, because it's just, you can kind of see in between the knots where that color carries through, and it makes it look a lot messier than a normal color change for me at this point. Like I said, I think with some practice this could be doable, so I'm definitely going to continue to play with this technique and see if it makes a difference if I use string that's all the same size. Like, theoretically my base strings being all the same size shouldn't affect anything, but I wonder if it did, so I'm going to try with some different base strings and stuff. You can also see I'm using a sparkly string. It doesn't translate super well in this video, but you can see the tinsel on that white piece of string, and that's like a sparkly fiber in there. You can also see the color changes when I was knotting at day and when I was knotting at night. So yeah, pro tip for using sparkly string like that is put a tiny knot at the top and the bottom of your string, and when you cut off from your ball or your skein or whatever, put a little knot there as well, and that'll just keep your like tinsel or your threads all as much in one place as possible and stop as much movement as you possibly can. But sparkly thread, whether it's just one fiber or all the fibers are sparkly, you're going to end up with fraying and some breakage, like you saw right there. The tinsel in my sparkly thread broke, so I had to like pull it up and knot it in, and then I'll snip it off here a bit later. But you'll also see here that about halfway through the U here, I switched to normal alpha because I wasn't liking the way that the flat alpha was looking. My knots didn't look even, and it just wasn't looking too cute. So at this point, you'll see that I start doing the color changes normal. And this is where things start to get interesting, because as you watch, you may even be able to notice, like right now, the bracelet is getting wider, despite not having introduced any new colors. So what that tells me is that my knots are more round or more chunky, I guess, when I'm doing a normal color change. And I think even now you can kind of see in comparison, especially when you look at the light green, you can kind of see in between the two light green knots in the earlier part, there's like a pink color carrying through. And in this part where I'm doing normal color change, they're all tightly packed together and you can't see that color through the front. And I don't know if that's practice or if it's the different sizes of strings that I was using that's causing that, but I intend to practice with it some more and find out. And then come the end of the G here that we're working on, I decide I don't want to give up on this technique yet. And I'm noticing that the bracelet is still getting like wider and getting much more warped width-wise. And at this point I get kind of intrigued, like what's causing that? Is it that I've introduced more string? Is my string kind of uneven because this craft cord is a little bit on the cheaper side? And I go back to the flat alpha technique after this letter to see what happens. So at this point, I'm not really sure what's causing it to warp the way it is. And I start to consider it may be that my string is cheap. It may be that I'm using 3 different types of string in one bracelet. So my base strings are a crochet thread. And they are a size 3 crochet thread. So they're a little bit chunkier and they're cotton. Whereas the 2 shades of green, the black string and the pink, are all from a pack of craft cord that I got at Walmart. And then the white sparkly thread is actually a different crochet thread by a different brand, which is slightly thinner, I think, than the craft cord that I'm using, but much thinner than the base strings that I have there, which again makes me wonder if my knots are so distorted because of how big my base string is compared to my knotting strings. So I'm going to play around with that a bit. But kind of at this point, we can see now that we're a couple rows into the A, that the bracelet is starting to come back inwards, which is telling me that my knots are definitely more long, like they're longer lengthwise when I'm doing the flat alpha technique than when I'm doing a normal color change. And I'm not sure if it's just the knots where I'm doing the color change that's doing that, and it's just enough that it's warping the pattern. I think that might be it, because I did notice that the knots looked smaller. The knots that I was doing the color change on looked smaller than the other knots. And I think just any small difference in your string size, in your knots, can be really, really visible in your finished product when it comes to an alpha. And this is one of those perfect examples of when that happens. Now, you guys know I know that you shouldn't mix different brands of string unless you're confident that they are the exact same size. And I think I posted in one of my monthly wrap-ups one that I did because I didn't realize that my strings were so drastically different in size, and it really warped. But this one, I thought they were close enough we might be able to get away with it. And sometimes you can. And I think if I'd have stuck to one method, we probably would have been okay in this bracelet. It would have been doable. And I don't think it would have been super noticeable. But that's not the point of this video. The point of this video was to experiment and try new techniques. So that's what we're doing in this one. But also, if you guys have any techniques or kind of rules or things that you've heard said but never tried yourself, so you just don't do it, and you want to see what actually happens when you do that, put it in the comments down below and I will give it a try and show you guys what happens. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with this. I'm kind of thinking I might just throw it on my keychain, because the amount it'll get battered around, no one will really notice if it's a little warped. But I may do this pattern again also with just good string, but in like one format so that it looks all the same, but for right now, I thought it turned out pretty okay. I'm a little surprised with how much is warping width-wise, that we haven't really warped so far as the lines go. The lines are still fairly straight. They're just getting like tighter and like flexing width-wise, which I think is kind of interesting. I was expecting we'd get a little more play in the actual straightness of the lines, just because I'm using all these different strings, but that tells me that my sparkly thread is probably closer to the same width as my craft cord than I actually thought it was, which is good to know because I like the sparkly thread and there wasn't any other sparkly thread at my local Walmart, because my local Walmart sucks. No, seriously, it's like the only store in town and it's always cleared out, so it's hard to get, especially craft stuff, because it's one of the only craft stores in town, and well, Walmart isn't a craft store, so that should tell you enough about that. Oh, also fun, I asked you guys about any bracelet resolutions you might have for 2020, and you guys on Bracelet Book gave me all kinds of answers. For me, I personally would love to make 60 bracelets this year. That's my goal. That breaks down to 5 bracelets a month, which I think is totally doable. And that's kind of my goal. I hope to do that. So hopefully you guys will see lots of new bracelets this year. Here we are up close, and you can see where those strings carry through. That you can really see it, especially noticeable in that green, and there's one black seed there that you can really notice to carry through on the next knot, and I'm not really sure how to get rid of that. I think it might just be a practice thing. And then you can see where that light green wrapped around at the top there when I was doing it kind of the normal way, not the normal way, but the flat alpha color change on the outside. And then you can see just how warped it is. But you can also see, which I didn't really notice before, just how bumpy a regular color change is compared to the flat alpha technique. And for reference, I've got another bracelet I'm working on here using regular color change. And to me, this didn't look that bumpy. So I'm like, I don't know whether it just looks bumpy because I've done the flat alpha like beside it. And yes, I'm trying the flat edges technique on this bracelet, but I just wasn't sure. Like, I didn't think they were that bumpy until I did it next to a flat alpha color change. So I'm not sure if it's a technique I'm going to stick with, but I'm definitely going to try it a couple more times before I give up on it. So I think that pretty much concludes Knotting Dangerously episode 1. Let me know what you guys think, and let me know if you have any tips for hiding that color change better. That's what I'm really curious about. So anyways, guys, until next time, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and I will see you all later. Bye!